Hi, I'm Somer Hackley,
Hi, I'm Zen Mac. This is the Art of Search Hiring Manager series.
and these are stories and insights about all things hiring. Well, Zen, it is so good to see you again.
Hello.
I would love to introduce you to our guest today, Dan McGuire. So, I've known Dan a long time, a long time. I placed him over a decade, we'll say. I placed him years ago at a major financial services company, and that's when I really got to know him very well. And we've stayed in touch over the years. And there are just so many great things I could tell you about Dan. But the one thing that stands out is he made me a better hiring manager and a better people leader. And I just remember whenever we would catch up, just how are things, or how's the role, or just, how's life? I would just selfishly ask Dan for leadership advice and ask him a lot of questions. And he gave me a great book, and which I ended up giving to my team. And I went from people asking to leave my team to asking to come back. And I do want to give a lot of that credit to Dan, honestly. So I will now. So thank you. And in terms of background, so Dan spent 30 years as a manager and an executive in large financial services institutions. He's led automation, rapid growth, digitization, technical and cultural transformations through downsizing, mergers, divestitures, and regulatory drills. And he came to realize that the best leaders and cultures are obsessed with one thing, and that's clarity. So he formed his company, Arcturus Advisory Services, where he brings this expertise to others. So, Dan, it is so great to see you here today. Thanks for joining us.
It's good to see you again, Somer. Thanks for the kind words.
Of
Great
course.
to be here.
Well, Dan, I'm excited to chat with you today too. I guess I'll fire away. What's the biggest thing you've learned over the years when it comes to hiring, or maybe a better way to put it is, how did that evolve for you?
Zen, it's a story. I'm a little bit of a recovering bad hirer. When I first started in leadership, it took me a number of years to learn to respect the entire process. You learn interview skills. That's the first thing they teach you, and it makes you think that that's it. You know,
Mhm.
and my some of my early mistakes are really being swayed by others. Going into an interview like, oh, this is the perfect candidate, or I have this perfect person. She did this, or this gentleman used to work here, um, or this recruiter gets the best people. Just bring them in.
Um,
Those sorts of things. So I started to gravitate toward candidates that people knew and they could kind of give me, vouch for them. I listened to answers that I wanted to hear.
mhm.
Um, I lined up interviewers that looked at things from the same perspective and didn't really focus on putting together a good, diverse team as far as perspectives go for interviewing. Um, and I did the usual ego thing, looking for people who are more like me from personality perspective. And I focused on that interview process in the middle and not the
Mhm.
entire package, the entire flow of hiring. So, the results were what you would expect. I got a couple of mishires, some fast resignations, a couple of notable ghostings.
Mm.
Um, and you know what I realized? I realized that I was getting better results working with people that I inherited in reorgs and other kind of organizational machinations than I
Mhm.
actually was getting from the people I was hiring myself. That's pretty bad, right?
Oh,
So
interesting.
over time, I grew, I improved, I've realized that I could learn. And here's where I kind of ended up, right? I learned from some really, really good people. I'm extremely fortunate in my career. I say that a lot because it's true. I learned from some really, really good people. And here's where it got me. Hiring is like anything else that I do that I want to be a professional at. I'm about as good as my preparedness, right?
Mhm.
If I spend time and I really focus on it. So when I'm looking to hire somebody, particularly a key person in an organization, and now I help organizations do this from the outside. But when I'm inside the organization, I know that I need to delegate a lot of other things so I can focus on
Mhm.
hiring. Um, and it's not like I have to take everything offline, but I really need to focus on it. And it's a process, and it need strong start, all the way to strong finish. And it needs my attention. It requires my attention. I learned that kind of the hard way. I look at it as a package of steps. I use the term package. Other people use different things. But all the way from planning scenarios of what this person might need to do, developing a really good job spec. I spend a lot of time with the recruiter, internal or external, because I find that the amount of time I spend with the recruiter and the amount of time we work together is really a force multiplier. It's like 1 + 1 = 4.
Yeah.
If we're kind of just emailing back and forth and, kind of, it just doesn't work that way. The quality is proportionate, and then once you have that slate with that recruiter, you build that slate, you run that professional hire interview process. You have the evaluation board, you sit down, you talk about your candidates, you discuss and you select. And some of the things I learned later is really how to close a candidate, close them, honest offer, strong offer, and then, onboard like a pro. Even if it's long garden leave, they're part of that company from day one. You find ways to have coffee, you find ways to have other people speak to the person, you figure it out. So I learned that whole package and I learned to focus on it. My biggest challenge, though, is demonstrating some courage to protect that process, because there's always an executive, maybe even a board director, that's happened, or a regulatory examiner saying, you need to hurry.
Yeah.
Cut something out, do something, cut a corner, do this. And the extent to which I protect the process, of course, you can find ways to streamline things. Okay. But protecting the integrity of that process from the spec, working with the recruiter, all the way through to really good onboarding. To that extent, you'll be successful. And I have been. And that's the thing that I learned the hard way, was I was giving in too hard. I wasn't protecting it. People would threaten me, we're going to pull the budget, we're going to do this. And I think the saying is slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? It is, run the process. Sometimes, you cut a corner, you're going to go back to square one.
Yeah.
So that's what, and I did several times. So that's kind of what I learned. That's kind of the journey that I went on, from really bad to pretty good. And the hardest part is protecting it.
I love that answer. Oftentimes I see that as well, where the process needs to run its course, and for multiple reasons, shifting priorities, different stakeholders having a point of view, and then the process kind of falls apart, and the hire gets made or doesn't get made, and now we're kind of sitting back at square one all over again. So thank you for saying that and for emphasizing the need to protect the process. I think if we get more hiring managers that think that way, I think we're going to see a much different result in hiring exercises altogether. Well,
It's not easy,
that yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, how about this? Can you share a story about one of the best hires you've ever made?
I'd love to. This goes back to a time I was looking for a leader in a development organization, technology application development organization. And I needed somebody who could take over a team right after a merger. So it was about 200 people, and it was probably half from firm A and half from firm B. And they felt like two teams. They behaved like two teams. And this person needed to come in, select people, select the go forward platform, and select the architectural strategy. It's a tough role.
Yeah.
A fun role. It would be something, I mean, what a great opportunity, right? To come in and put your handprint on something special.
Yep.
So that kind of sets the scene for what I was looking for. But we had deadlines and we had regulatory scrutiny. So I needed to, protect that process. So I had, we got all the way down to interview day, kind of put together our slate, got to interview day. And I had 3 prominent prospects coming in, candidates coming in. I had 2 external candidates that we really liked and an internal candidate from a division clean across the firm. So for us, we treated them all the same. Same process, same interviewers, same questioning strategy, same
Yep.
evaluation process.
Yep.
Okay. So kind of we run the process, and the way I did it was my exec admin, she ran the show as
Mm.
far as who was on for what, make sure that each person got walked to the right place, the
Yep.
people were prepared, we were ready to go. And everything was going well. It's later in the day. And by the way, we're in the middle of this merger. And so things are a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
And I see one of my direct reports with one of the candidates that I'm to interview next. So I, put
Mm.
aside my papers. I'm getting ready for the interview. And he sits the candidate down and he walks in and closes the door. So I think he's going to have a conversation with me, like wrong person or, something like that.
Mm.
And he proceeds to start talking about a problem we have for the weekend, a technical problem with a data conversion. And, I'm
Wait.
not a good think about multiple things at the same time type person. I like to do one at a time.
Okay.
So I'm listening to him. I'm kind of not, I'm like, wait, stop. How's the candidate? And he's like, oh, yeah, I think he's good. Okay.
Okay.
Um, why don't we just bring him in here? Maybe he can help with this. And
Hmm.
the reaction was, whoa, yeah. And I said, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's wing it.
Mm.
So we brought the gentleman and I said, continue. And then the first few minutes were pretty awkward, but then the candidate was asking outsider questions that were pretty relevant
Mm.
within 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. They're both standing at the whiteboard with markers, looking at the 6 steps we have to go through the weekend, asking questions. I conference in some other people
Hmm.
on the voice line, and we're
Hmm.
having a conversation. Some of the people on the phone are like, "Who's this guy?" Like, don't worry about it. Um, and the candidate um, actually helped us.
Oh.
Um, yeah, I could see the way they interacted. I could see the what ifs they were running through, the contingencies, the steps. And the
Mm.
candidate made a suggestion like, can you switch these 2 steps? And the immediate reaction was, no, wait, maybe.
Mm.
Um, and at the end of it, there were handshakes. There was, hey, hey, thanks a lot, And I'm like, oh, I need to interview you now. So,
Oh.
we throw everybody out of the office. I run the interview. We ran the rest of the day. Um, and it turns out we looked at the 3 candidates, we had our conversation, and that's the candidate we selected. And we closed him that night.
Wow.
Um, and look, I understand that there was luck in this process, right? We happen to have a problem, something that came up. But what I learned, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm very, very grateful because this is one of the top 3 hires I've ever made. Now he's a CTO, and he's on his way. Um, but what I learned roll with it, right?
Mm.
Serendipity is okay. I talked to candidates through building fire drills. Office parties happen, lunches happen, things happen out on the floor. We watch our candidates, we watch their faces, their reactions, their body language. It's all part of the process. And
Hmm.
that little bit of those little things that happen. Um, Once during a fire drill, a candidate told me that she doesn't like to work in a high rise. We're on the 30th floor. I'm interviewing this
Oh.
candidate. And I had an opening in New Jersey, in Warren, New Jersey, at a 3-story building.
Huh.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And we made that connection. That was several years before. But so that's a story of one of the best hires I ever had, was a little lucky thing that happened. It turned out this is one of the best team players I've ever met. So I'm grateful for it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. And I think you highlighted one of the most important things when it comes to recruiting and hiring is people hire people, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, people hire people. So I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. I love that story. And I love what you said earlier about protect the process. I think we should all implement that. I might steal that a little bit, but first of all, it means you have a process. So kudos to you for having one because not everybody does. And then being able to protect it because yeah, I mean, at least as recruiters, hiring is that's our life. But for you, I mean, it's one of so many things that you have going on, and it's so easy to just show up and react versus just
Yeah.
own it, from, like you said, from start to end, and just being there, being a part of it and protecting it. And that makes such a difference that, you're not just reacting and sitting back to it, and you're standing up and having those conversations. And yeah, and I love the serendipity piece, and I love the interviewing between interviews piece, because I think about that all the time, is that everyone shows their true colors when they don't think they're being watched, or it could just be a text, an email. Like you said, you walk by a birthday party on the floor, and what do, right? So you can tell a
Exactly.
lot. You can tell a
Plus,
lot.
they learn a lot in the
They learn a
process, right? They're
lot.
learning about the organization, so it's kind of a win-win.
Yes, absolutely. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of your wisdom. It was so great to
No, I
have you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. All right, take care.
Okay, thanks.